Hello everyone, my name is Frederick S. Wilson. I was born in 1947. My parents are George H. Wilson Sr. and my mother is Grace Tunis Green Wilson. I have four brothers and one sister. My sister's name is Jane, then there's George Jr., Henry, Jimmy, and me, Fred. My father, to tell you a little bit about our family tree a little bit, my father was a farmer. After he came home from World War I, he started farming about 1920. Mom was a housewife, raising five children, so that was a full-time job to do that. We owned about a 250-acre farm down in Miles River Neck. People today, when you refer to a neck, they don't know what you mean, but that's the way back in the olden days you referred to where you were living as the neck. I grew up on a farm helping my father in my younger years plant the crops and enjoyed swimming and sailing. There was a lot of times when I was a young kid, I didn't really want to go to school. I wanted to help my father plant the crops. So I had a chance to get an excuse not to go to school because back then you were permitted to help put the crops in, and it was a legal excuse back then. I would learn to cultivate the crops and work the ground because back in those days you only had a two-row corn planter and you had maybe an 8-foot disc to farm the land, and it took you all spring to plant all the crops and everything. And that's what I enjoyed to do in trying to help him. I spent a lot of my summers as a young youth in the teenage years. We boated on the Leeds Creek, which is a tributary of Miles River, and we enjoyed sailing and boating, and I had my own sailboat, which I learned how to sail. I even had a runabout that we all would play on the Leeds Creek. We learned how to ski, and those were our years of just free pleasure. You just didn't have to have a lot of regimented, stipulated type of organized sports. We just lived the summers and enjoyed the surroundings. Many times we would spend our farm was adjacent to Tunis Mills, and we lived on next to Tunis Mills, and we would spend a lot of our summers swimming off of the Tunis Mills Bridge, and it was immensely fun. We had a good time doing that, and back in those days, you would eat your lunch and you couldn't go swimming for a half an hour or 45 minutes because your mother said you'd get cramps. So I don't think that applies today to these kids. As soon as they eat something, they're right back in the pool. But that was our swimming pool back in those days. You didn't have too many swimming pools, so we always took a dip in Leeds Creek. And that was my younger years. And then I went to Easton High School. I played varsity football. I was co-captain for the team. Had a lot of good mentors when I was in Easton High School, and it really made me grow up a lot there. And after I graduated from high school, I went on to Goldie Beacom in Wilmington, Delaware, and I graduated from there. I got married shortly after that to Becky Eichstead, and we were married in 1970. We have three children: Christopher, Erica, and Jason. We've been married for 43 years. Now, Jason's my youngest, and Chris is the oldest, and Erica's in the middle. We have 5 granddaughters. I'm just going to give first names: Emily, Hannah, Georgiana, Sydney, and Parker. So they're all girls, no boys yet. I've worked at my employment. I've worked at a local dealership that sells Peterbilt and international trucks. I've worked there for 42 years. That was basically a little background on myself. I would like to talk now to move into one of our enjoyments, which is a tradition that our family's been, and it's about the Chesapeake Bay Log Canoes. And these are my remembrances of growing up with the Log Canoes, and kept us out of trouble. We were busy all summer. You would have quite a few races, and it kept you really interested in sailing, and it was very competitive. As I say, we've been sailing for, the Log Canoe's been sailing for 80, our particular boat is called the Magic, and it sailed continuously for 83 years. And it missed a race back in World War II when they had to cancel the races. But I'm going to let Emily ask me some questions, and then I'm going to give her the answers, and we can go on and respond to it.
Okay. Why did the Wilson family get interested in log canoes?
We got interested in the log canoes in about 1920. My grandfather, William H. Green, was instrumental in resurrecting the log canoes, and he was like the impetus to get them back sailing again, because basically they were oyster tonging boats, and they were made out of logs, and some of them were made out of 3 logs, some were made out of 5 logs, and they were pointed at both ends. My grandfather, Bill Green, he started with one log canoe that he found up in a creek, and he resurrected the old girl and got her in ship shape, and it was called the Mary Rider, and that was one of the first log canoes to start sailing in about 1925. And he had 5 daughters that sailed on the boat, and they were called the Green Girls. He also helped to form the Miles River Yacht Club, and which was formed in about 1924. And he was Commodore for 1 year, and he was just very interested in keeping the canoes from dying out, because there was hundreds and thousands of them back in the early 1800s, but they were all dying out due to the fact that due to a gasoline engine coming into the mainstream, that the canoes wouldn't be around anymore. So he was pertinent in saving the canoes. My father got interested in the canoes because basically he married Mr. Green's daughter, my mother, and he wasn't he saw how Mr. Green was sailing the canoes, and he got real interested in the canoes. And he just loved the water, and he loved to boating and sailing, and he had a drive for saving the canoes also, and he was instrumental too in saving the log canoes. And you got another question?
When did your dad buy the Canoe Magic?
Okay, the Canoe Magic was purchased in about 1924 from a gentleman named Charles Banning. She was a canoe used for oystering, and when he bought her, it had an engine in it. He took the engine out of it, and he had her rigged for racing, which my grandfather had to marry Ryder, and they were racing. There was a lot of other canoes back then, and back then there was maybe 15 or 20 canoes that were rigged for racing in the regattas that they started to have. Dad removed the engine, and he had her rigged for racing and sailing. So it was basically, back in the old oystering days, you had one mast, and the boat that sailed in the earliest or fastest with oysters got the best price. So that's how some of the competition got started also. And my dad took the Log Canoe Magic, and he had her rigged for racing, and it's a two-masted boat. They sail at St. Michael's in Oxford every year. The gentleman that did all the work to the Magic was when getting her built for racing and competition. The gentleman's name was Lowndes Johnson, and he was an avid starboat racer, a marine architect and builder, and he was very instrumental in designing some crafts for the Miles River and the Chesapeake Bay. He designed the Comet, which is used today in competition. So he had Mr. Johnson rebuild the Magic for him, and at the beginning of the Wilson tradition of log canoe racing, we had a chance. My father had a chance to take the Canoe Magic and put it in a boat show, and we had the Magic taken to New York City, and it was exhibited in the New York Boat Show. So that was a big thing back then, and the canoes got a lot of recognition back then, and they were commonly referred to as the racehorses of the Chesapeake Bay. Emily, you got another question?
What is the Governor Cup for the log canoes?
The Governor's Cup is the trophy that's given to the log canoes that were built before 1934. And they are a perpetual trophy, means you win the trophy, you have to get it back the next year. The trophy was put together. It's a big silver bowl. It's probably about 2 foot across the top. And the yacht club, Miles River Yacht Club, had to raise funds for it. And they went to the state of Maryland, and Governor Albert Ritchie helped sponsor the Governor's Cup. So that was one of the big drives to help keep the log canoe sailing, because you would race for a perpetual trophy and you would get your name engraved on it. And that helped us save the canoes by having a lot more competition. That was the real beginning of the competition for racing on the Miles River. Now go ahead, the next question there.
Who had the idea of the Governor's Cup?
The idea of the Governor's Cup was put up by my grandfather, William H. Green, and they formed a committee, and I think we've talked about that. We had to go ahead and get Albert Ritchie to sponsor the cup. So go to the next question, if you would.
How many times has the Magic won the Governor's Cup?
The Magic, the Magic has won the Governor's Cup probably 20 to 25 times. Captain Bob, my father, won it 11 or 12 times until he retired in 1963 from sailing the boat. And to present day, I'd say the Magic has won the Governor's Cup maybe 20 to 25 times. And it takes a good captain and a fast boat to win the Governor's Cup. I'm done with that part.
When did you start sailing on the Magic?
I started sailing on the Magic when I was about 10 years old. And I wanted to go sooner, but my father said I was too little. So I went ahead and I started sailing, and I had the lowest position of the sailing canoe, and I was termed the bail boy. So when the boat leaned over, I had to bail the boat out and keep the water out of it so it wouldn't capsize. And then I moved on to, I attended one of the sails. I would go to the mainsail, which is the sail in the back, and then I would move up to the jib, which is the front sail. And I rode on the boards to help keep the Magic, they're called hiking boards, to keep the boat from tipping over. That's the ballast that you use. I raced for about, when I started at 10 years old, I raced for about 13 to 14 years. And I stopped mainly because I got married, and my wife didn't want to be on shore with 3 kids, so I had to pick, what am I going to do? I'm going to sail, be on the boat, or raise a family. So I had to raise a family. And I would say that my father sailed the boat from 1925 to 1963. My brother George sailed it from 63 to 1971. I sailed it in 1972. My brother Jimmy sailed it from 73 to about 2006 when he passed away from cancer. And then another gentleman that was a good crew member sailed it in 2007. And then my son Jason had sailed the Log Canoe from roughly 2008 to 2009. And now Jonathan Clark, he's sailing from 2010 to the present day, and he's the great-grandson of my father. And so that brings us up to today about who were the captains and everything. In summary, there are about 12 to 15 Log Canoes left still sailing. I stopped sailing in 1972 to raise a family, but my my brother Jimmy's wife, since Jimmy took over the Log Canoe and sailed it for about 30 years, she said, when you we get married to my brother Jimmy, you married the Log Canoe too. And it's started back about 3 years ago. I never had the desire always had a desire for sailing. And about 3 years ago, I got back on the canoes and started sailing, but basically it's too much work for an older guy, so it's a young guy's endeavor now. And if I had it to do all over again, as far as my life is concerned, I wouldn't change a thing. The Eastern Shore is the best place to live. It is truly as they always say back in the days, they said it's the land of pleasant living. And that's it.